What's up, Rockstars? If you backed any Kickstarter campaign from Mythic Games, if you are at all curious about the future of Kickstarter or crowdfunding in general for board games, this is a video you need to watch. Alright, so Mythic Games created Six Siege and just made an update about it when it comes to the money they need, and they need a lot of money to deliver it. We're going to discuss that in just a little bit. I want to lead up to it to some talking points, and I'm going to go over your guys' comments like I said I would, and actually answer your questions. So just before I go into anything, blanket statement, I have reached out to them, to Mythic Games. I have not heard back yet. If I do, I will, of course, include that in an update in a future news video, so stay tuned for future coverage of all the board gaming news that you need right here, including Mythic Games updates. Now, this was actually a post by Nailer Games. They did this a few days ago, and I think it's hilarious. So it just shows the publisher designers just wanting to make the next game and not wanting to run a company. And they're actually doing this to kind of advertise the fact that they will do the nitty gritty for you and you just create games, which is actually kind of a normal thing. I think this is a little bit different, but essentially it's very common to how a lot of game designers make games and then pitch it to these different companies. It's a little bit different in this. In this case, it sounds like you already kind of have your game and you're just hiring Nailer Games to kind of run it as opposed to pitching it. But it's kind of the same way. I mean, imagine Nailer Games can say no to something they don't want to deal with or don't feel aligns with them too well or whatever. So I don't know exactly how different this is from a normal situation, like how Eric Lang worked before he joined CMON. That's a good example that I think a lot of you will know, where he designs a game and then it's like, I just want to design games. I don't want to run games. And then CMON's like, well, or run a business. And then CMON's like, well, we run a business. How about you let us do your game? So kind of like that. They're a little bit different. Feel free to reach out to them. I think that's awesome. But just this is, I think, it's hitting the nail on the head on the internal desire that I think a lot of companies have, or a lot of companies emulate. Now, I guess what I'm saying is I don't think it's always malicious. I think a lot of times people are like, oh, you just want to like create the next game and you just want to do the next campaign. And, I have the make games, not campaigns kind of thing. And there's a lot to that as well. I'm not going to dive into it, but the idea of designing a game and running a company is different skill sets. You can be really good at this and really bad at this. And I feel this signifies Mythic Games quite well. You could probably put Mythic Games there, where I feel like their games are actually quite good. The delivery of it, which I think is partially business-wise, it wasn't always up to snuff, and they kind of struggled with rule books and translations and finer details of the, like game setup and stuff like that. But when it came to actual gameplay, a lot of it was very, very good. I loved Somnolent Kane. I love Darkest Dungeon. Six Siege is a fantastic game. I love that prototype. It's such a blast. So they make good games, but they suck at running a company. It's almost like they don't want to. So let's go ahead and discuss. So this is Six Siege, a board game. Yes, you can see I did back here. It's just a $69 pledge. I didn't go too heavy into this one, but I am out hundreds of dollars. So if you think that I don't care, or you think that I'm just getting all these free games from them, that's not the case. That's not the case. If I get a free game from them, I also get the copy I paid for. In fact, that's happened before, where they didn't realize that I was buying a game because they're not used to that happening with YouTube creators, but that was me buying it. So I really do dig a lot of their stuff. They go over a whole bunch here when it comes to, like going over the production and what you're getting and how the game is and all that stuff. You get some bonuses for contributing. In other words, they're just going to make this because they're only make it for people who contribute. We'll get on that later. But you get some STLs and some arts and prints, stuff like that, depending on your level of contribution, where they're kind of in production, and then the reason for requesting contribution, and then, of course, the actual contribution amount. We're going to go over the contribution amount right away, just so you guys know. Because if you did back Six Siege, this is something you have to do to get your game. Like that, it's not going to happen any other way. Like, trust me, you ain't going to get your game if you don't give them money. So right now, Fresh Recruit, which is the core pledge, is $39. Then for the Trooper, Gameplay All-In was $99. And then the Smooth Operator for the Premium All-In was $129. And so depending on what you did there, depends on what you're going to get. If you ordered more for whatever reason, that also increases the amount, of course. It's kind of like per item. And then it starts getting a really bad deal really quick, if that makes sense. We've stuck to these. At most, if you just back to the Smooth Operator, you're out $129. That's kind of how that works. So it kind of goes into claims of reimbursement and stuff like that, okay? And then it does the French thing. So a few things to kind of point out here. If we're going to scroll back up to their reasons for contribution. As we have said before, the combined crisis of COVID and the war in Ukraine, which we had not anticipated, have changed the international situation. Very true. Prices have literally exploded in all areas, and the estimates on which they've since come down on some, like freight isn't that much more than it was. It is more, and in fact, it probably would never go as cheap as it was, just because of a whole lot of situations. I guess I won't get into it now, but there's just a whole load of situations, not just the war in Ukraine and COVID, but also what that did to different economies and tendencies of consumers and manufacturers and Chinese manufacturing in particular and all that other kind of stuff. Anyway, and the estimates on which we based ourselves before and during Kickstarter campaign are absolutely no longer relevant. Okay, so they give you things like, for instance, their paper and cardboard doubled to 1,200 per ton instead of 600, and the cost of labor for like actually putting minis together, assembling things, stuff like that, went from $4 to $8 per hour. My goodness, they need to get paid more over there. So anyway, this is the important part here. On our side, it must be said, indeed, we spent much more than expected in the development of the game, with more people than we expected working on it and longer than we originally estimated, which caused extra costs, but also the advantage of having an optimal, well-tested, varied, and balanced game in the end. Okay, so Darkest Dungeon stats, more than 80% of backers paid the contribution. So the vast majority. What you saw in all the comments was the 20%. Or some of the 80% that just begrudgingly did it but still voiced their opinion. But that's a vast majority. Most of the people commenting were those 20%. And you got to remember, like, tens of thousands of people backed it. So this is like a large thing. In fact, if we go back up to here, you can see that this was 1.5 million and 10,844 backers before the pledge manager, which is important to note as well. So I'm going to go over some kind of blanket things. I'm going to get into a lot of opinions as I answer your guys' questions and comments. Anything I don't get, I do have some notes to make sure that I still make them. But one thing to note is if you add all of this up, so every fresh recruit on the Kickstarter gets this, every trooper gets this, every smooth operator gets this, the total. Now, before I list the total, note that obviously this is a guesstimate, but I think it's actually a fairly conservative one. Not everybody, but the vast majority of people that pledge during Kickstarter will fill out the pledge amount. There will be a few that pledge and then actually just essentially donate the money. They don't complete the pledge manager. Either they didn't understand the Kickstarter process, something happens where they can't even pay shipping or whatever. Either way, like they just kind of ghost out. Okay, so there is a set percentage to do that. But the vast majority will not only complete the pledge manager, but they will up their pledge, they will add add-ons over time, and late pledgers come in as well. So the total amount of people pledging for this is far more than the 10,884. But assuming very conservatively that nobody late pledged, and it's just that everybody that backed the Kickstarter got this, which again, this is a low ball. It is a guesstimate, but it's a low one. It comes out to over $750,000. Now, it sounds like a lot. It sounds like a crazy amount. But you got to remember, and I'm going to get into your guys' grievance and kind of what you guys have been saying. And trust me, it's not all positive. But what you got to remember, this right here, this 1,541,463 is revenue, not profit. So often, and Mythic Games was a classic example of this. Companies were so obsessed with inflating that number, inflating the number that revenue is, because it's a public number. It's what everybody looks at. It's what everybody gauges your success on. And it's not actually the number you need to focus on. Profit is what actually matters, not revenue. You can have more profit and make less revenue easily by running a smarter business structure, or you can have way more revenue and make barely any profit, if at all. It's just how the things work. Now, board games in particular do not have that high of a profit margin compared to other entertainment industries. When it comes to like movies are probably the most comparable thing when it comes to like cost. But there are ways like, let's say like the Joker or something like that, where you can spend a little amount and still make a lot because it explodes. But more often than not, you got to pump all that money into marketing, got to pump all that money to where they only just break even, and then sometimes make money and sometimes not. You can point to countless movies that actually lost money. Same kind of thing with board games. There's a lot of people involved. There's a lot of physical product and moving around and all that kind of stuff, to where the manufacturing of it is actually quite a bit. Now, I've pointed this out before. I'm not going to go get it now, but I grabbed, I believe, Batman the last time, the all-in, because it was like, that's what you got of the first one, right? All the stretch goals were added into it. So the two big boxes cost about $55 to manufacture. So when they sell it for like 110, 120, whatever, like that's like 50% profit. But of course, then there's other costs and stuff that occur. But like that 55 is quite a bit of it, actually. And so like the manufacturing and the cost and what you sell it at, it depends on the game. It depends on who you use. It depends on the manufacturing. It depends on all sorts of stuff. So, but either way, just don't get too focused on this. It's the same trap that companies like Mythic Games fall into, where they fall into the revenue pursuit, where they're just looking for a higher dollar amount and not realizing how the cost of that. A recent example that some of you guys I think will relate to is Dragori Games. I think they made a great product. Don't get me wrong there. But when it comes to launching 3 campaigns in total, you got Arena, you got Tenaris, and then you got the RPG, and having all of those SKUs, it raised millions and millions of dollars. But they're seeing the cost of that now when it comes to delivery and making sense of and the logistics of so many SKUs and so many things from, essentially, Tenaris was 2 campaigns worth because it had Arena, the whole campaign, the Kickstarter campaign of that worth. And then, of course, the RPG on top of that. So like 3 campaigns worth of product suddenly sending out globally across the world and delivering it all in the right spots and doing the right, it's insanely costly. So again, you're looking at profit in the million, or revenue in the millions, not necessarily profit. So keep that in mind as well. Now, why are they asking for contributions? I think it's pretty obvious. They can't, sell games right now, right? Like if they launched a Kickstarter, it would not do well. I've seen some discussion around essentially preying on the ignorant, on new people that don't realize, that don't read updates, that don't comment, stuff like that. That, oh, hey, you could get them to back. And yeah, you could, but it wouldn't be $750,000 worth. It's just, there's enough traction against them right now to where they would very struggle to make any significant amount of money when it comes to selling a game. So what does it leave them with? I mean, how do they get money inflow, right? How does that work? Well, this is how they do it. This is their Kickstarter campaign now. I'm not going to get into the situation that Mythic Games found themselves in, except to say that the companies that had outstanding games from previously, these big box games, were especially hit from this, not just from a manufacturing side, but from a lot of different sides when it comes to like legality and the logistics of it and the cost of importing things and all sorts of stuff like that. I'm talking loosely there on purpose because I'm not trying to get into the nitty gritty of that. Just know that obviously if you launched a game before the COVID or even during and then afterwards, and if you didn't have a quick turnaround, or if you had a huge game or huge games, the worse it got for you. So Mythic Games having Monster Apocalypse, having Anastyr, having Sixth Siege, having Rise of the Necromancer, having Darkest Dungeon. Am I missing any? I'm probably missing some too. Like that's at least 5, right? Like right there that they hadn't delivered. They just kept launching games, right? This was a common complaint from Mythic Games. And while they were getting better, they weren't getting great. Oh, hell, The Last Saga. There's 6 campaigns, 6 massive campaigns. So you're just constantly doing that. Now, $750. Why would it be that? Well, it's because you're paying for everything. They don't have the money to produce it. They don't have the money to ship it. And they don't have the money to run themselves as a company until then. Again, this is all suspect. I have not heard back from them. That was one of the specific questions I asked them. So if they do clarify that, I will let you know. But that's how I see it, is that $750 is to infuse into the company to keep running, because they're running the same way they did before, though by necessity instead of choice now. I mean, and then I'll talk about necessity in a little bit here too. So it was fairly obvious, I feel, that they were running on cash flow, not cash reserves. What I mean by that is, as a company, they would get X amount in, and X amount in, let them go for another year, and let them go for another year, and let them go for another year, and have, some safety net left over, but certainly not enough to, okay, now suddenly you no longer make any money as a business, deliver everything. That wasn't how they were running. They weren't running on a everything's paid for. They were running on a we have cash flow, right, as a company. And a lot of companies run that way, even outside this industry. That's just a very common company tactic, and it works until it doesn't, right? Eventually, the inertia stops. Eventually, you hit that anistia. Eventually, you hit that underperformance or that roadblock where suddenly you can't make money anymore, and then the whole train comes crashing because that's what you were running on. The same thing is happening now. They are going year by year, and because they can't launch a Kickstarter, they can't get this influx of money, but they need the money to do stuff because they don't have it anymore. Well, they do this contribution, they get $750,000 infused in, they can produce it, and they can ship it, and then charge again for the next one, and then charge again for the next one. And again, just like the cash flow, it works until it doesn't, or still doesn't. On that note, there is something I didn't point out that I want to point out, because I think that's important. They did mention, let's go to their bullet points here, right here. If they do not reach the commitment rate, we commit to reimburse all contributions for these additional costs, the amount of the contribution minus the bank fees, which they didn't collect. So if you do contribute and it's not enough, roadblock, company's no longer viable, they can't produce, they can't do anything, plan D, I'm assuming they're on plan C by now, you'll get back what you had just given them. That's not reimbursing you for Succeed, it's reimbursing you for that 99, for that 39, for that 129 that you just paid, minus a little bit. So you're out a little bit from the bank fees, about 10% or so, once all said and done, and they get it from like Stripe or whatever it is you're using. But that's kind of what they mean there. So there was, I think, some comments asking about if they could actually reimburse. Well, that's just a contribution they're reimbursing. So that's that. Anyway, but yeah, it's just like Anister. It's a ticking time bomb. When that bomb will go off, I don't know. Maybe it won't ever. Maybe they'll be able to get just enough to deliver everything and then just die off quietly and not actually like ruin the industry with them. I say ruin the industry because this is only 10,000 backers. Darkest Dungeon was tens of thousands more. And again, this is over 10,000, especially with the Pledge Manager. Plus then all those others, a total of 6. Plus they had others since then, like, or before that, like, Joan of Arc and stuff like that. They were just massive. Tens of thousands, a huge percentage of people, of you and me, of people are out on the hook for this kind of stuff. This is not a little thing, right? I cover all these companies, and these other companies are like at 2,000, 3,000, maybe even something like 7,000 or something crazy like that, which is still huge, granted. But it's not tens of thousands of people. The effect that Mythic Games would have going under is so much larger than any other company when it comes to turning off people from crowdfunding, which they're already doing anyway. When it comes to souring people's tastes on crowdfunding in general, hurting the public image of Kickstarter, and really hurting the public image of the industry as news agencies will then start covering it, not just little YouTubers like me. So it's definitely a massive thing. The community is obviously extremely upset about this because, obviously, they have already paid for the game, and because Mythic Games can't run a business well, they're now having to pay more. And even then, sometimes it's a lot more. And then, of course, they're doing stuff about it. For instance, here is a quiz maker on the results of what people have said. Will you pay for it? Yes, no, we're waiting for more info. 63% say no. Of the 900-ish, I believe, 900 and some change that have responded, again, not even 1/10 of the people that backed it, just in the Kickstarter, not including Pledge Manager, late backers and stuff like that. So a very small percentage. It is definitely not a good distribution of people. The people that are upset in the comments, complaining about it in the comments, are the people that are going to click this, and they're the ones that are going to answer this. And that's actually better than I thought it was, especially the 21%, especially the 15%. I would have assumed this would be above 80%. So the fact that it's only 63 is actually kind of impressive, and kind of lends me to think that you are still kind of seeing the loud 20%, right? Darkest Dungeon still had 80% of the people that needed to actually, give them the money. Will it be similar? We'll know in 2 weeks' time, because another important thing I forgot to mention, because I'm amazing, hopefully I'll edit this in, you have 2 weeks to do this, is kind of their spiel on this. 2 weeks, which is not good. I think that's kind of terrible. I think it's the 2 weeks, not so much to be like, oh my gosh, you gotta do it now, but because they want to go based off the quote they just got. You can constantly get quotes, but the quotes can change from day to day. So they're trying to kind of lock in a price on like, hey, this is how much we think we need. And so in 2 weeks, if we can raise that, then we can do it. If not, then we can't. Okay, and actually, while I'm on that, a little bit to note here when it comes to receiving the funds to print and deliver it. When it says a sufficient commitment rate, the reason, and I asked them this too, I haven't heard back yet. Again, I'll clarify if I hear back. The reason that they are saying it like this and not like we need to hit that 80% or whatever, is because they're looking at how much they make versus how many people backed versus how much it would cost to deliver to those people with that distribution to see if that's enough for some minimal print run. In other words, in Darkest Dungeon, they didn't raise it enough to deliver to everybody. They raised it enough to deliver to 80% of people, plus then run the company, right? So there's that too. So it's the same kind of thing. They need to make enough to produce it for the people who did it, to ship it to people who did it, and to keep running the company. And if that is whatever that special sauce, special number of commitment rate is, they meet that, then they'll do it. Otherwise not. But they're not trying to say they need 100%. They will not get 100%. Even Darkest Dungeon, which was the first time they did this, which had a better reaction, it was still negative, but it was better than this, got 80%. So they didn't give it 100% there. They're not going to get 100%. I've never heard of any company getting 100%. This just doesn't happen. So they're looking for whatever that magic number is and whether or not they'll get enough or not. Who knows? We'll see. They also have a Discord, that you can also join and kind of discuss with other people. And it seems actually quite civil and a good conversation, especially around some legality and stuff like that. People are kind of doing research and seeing what they can do, stuff like that. I have seen a few things. I've seen people say that they need to report it to Kickstarter. Kickstarter doesn't care. I promise you they don't care. Not only is Mythic Games not a big deal to them, they're kind of old news, but Kickstarter is the only group that actually wins out of all this. They always win. Guaranteed. They have the best position of everything. The company can lose, the backers can lose, Kickstarter always wins. They're at the house in a gambling machine because they already got their cut from that 1.5 million. So what do they care if they deliver or not? It's just a loss of potential future money to them, which a business can't have any line of sight of that I've ever seen. Businesses suck when it comes to that. They can barely look at the money they are making, nonetheless, what they could have made. It's amazing how blind they are to that. Kickstarter doesn't care. They just don't. They let them keep launching them. And it's not like people weren't reporting them, because people were. There were calls for that while they were launching it. While they were launching all these other ones. It was like, oh my gosh, the 6th campaign you haven't delivered? Report. Kickstarter didn't care. They still let them launch it because they wanted their cut. And now they got their cut. They're happy. As far as they're concerned, case closed. Business deal over. They don't care. So you can report it to them if it makes you feel better. I'm just trying to tell you, don't expect much from Kickstarter. I 100% guarantee they don't care at all about your problems right now, because as far as they're concerned, it paid quite well. Six Siege was great. What a massive success for them, just not for us, just not for Mythic Games. Okay, let's go ahead and talk about the kind of conversations or questions that you guys have asked here. And I'm going to have my notes here, so I'll talk over about that as well. I'm not going to read them verbatim. There's some longer ones. I'm going to try and remember what they said. I've read through them all, but there are quite a few. We're going to kind of go through it pretty quick, so I'm going to kind of skim a little bit. This is actually, let's see, their writing has been on the wall some time now. I agree. As for refund on Monster Apocalypse, yeah, the refunds, by the way, last I heard in one of the comments, they were saying July 22nd, but they don't know if that's like last year or the year before, probably the year before. Their refunds are going very, very, very slow. You can ask for a refund by all means, put it in there. Do not expect it. Don't go in there expecting a refund. And then you can be disappointed. Maybe in 2035, you'll get it and you'll be all happy. Otherwise, you weren't out any more than you already were. So just as an FYI, feel free to request it. Don't count on it. I just want what I've paid for it. Yeah, that's everybody. Without having to pay it again to receive it. Amen to that. That's not going to happen though. Asking 50% of the price of a pledge essentially means they have no money to manufacture the game. Yeah, and that's what they're saying. Like, we need to even produce it. Darkest Dungeon was technically produced and they just need to ship it. This one, they don't even have it produced. They don't have the money for it, which means all that money, all the hundreds of thousands that they've made from Darkest Dungeon went to running the company and went to actually kind of like producing and shipping it and all that kind of stuff. And now they need that other influx in. That's exactly what it is. It's Keep Mythic Games Alive Fund. And you can either put it into it or you cannot. It's pretty much, from the looks of it, when does it die? Does it happen now with Six Siege? Does it happen later? I'm conflicted on this. Overall, it's like a Winston Churchill thing, right? It sucks, but the greater good is you guys getting your games. Like, I want you guys to be able to get your games. So, but at the same time, it just sucks. Not giving them another cent. I can definitely understand that. Another news, Storm Thunder is delayed another 1.5 years. Yeah, Storm Thunder was apparently barely. I don't know. Lazy Squire Games is busy launching other campaigns too. They're not in the same situation because they're actually doing quite well. But they're working on it like Archon worked on Chronicle X. Which I see Jarek down there a little lower, so we'll get to that. Where there comes a point where working on the game is just a cost, right? You're not making any money from it. Have you ever tried to like work on something you know is going to get like destroyed or removed or not used? It sucks, and you got to kind of pull your teeth and pull your hair to kind of even force yourself to do it. And a lot of companies act this way too. That's the whole make games, not campaigns, right? They're busy making other campaigns, making money that way. They ain't making money working on Storm Thunder for the next 8 million years while they, one of the funny story switches was the fact that like, oh man, we're waiting, we're all good, but we're waiting on the manufacturing of the miniatures. And now it's, oh, the miniature's done, but now we're waiting on us because actually it's all on us. It's like, well, of course it is. I don't know. They just discovered walls not too long ago, I believe, right? So whatever. How is Mythic not using the ransom to fund its comeback? Because the same people that made the bad business decisions are still there. There was no management change. It was just the peons that got kicked, right? Just like any business. The people that get the business into the position that they're in stay in that position, and then everybody that's just wanting a job and just working their job gets the shaft. That's just how it works. With that note, I saw some comments saying like, look to anybody that has like worked at Mythic Games, look on their LinkedIn and like find them and warn people. Not everybody's in a business decision-making role. Most people aren't. Most people are just doing their job. Just working, doing whatever the boss says. I don't know how many times in my career I've been told to do something I thought was stupid, I thought was dumb, I thought was not a smart decision and the wrong way to do things. But I'm not in the decision point to make it. My boss is, and he's the one telling me to do this, so you do that. Or you just do the best job you can in that space, because that's what it is. Well, maybe you look for another job. Maybe you don't. Maybe you still love working in board games. This is your chance. Don't take it out on the little guys. That's all I'm saying. Don't, you want to go to the decision makers by all means, but past that, don't take out your ire on other people. So I'm wondering, do they really need 10% of all backers to contribute to the thing? I know where you got 10%. They probably need a lot more than 10%. Are we even sure that they will print it ever? If they got the money, I think they will, Ron. Just like they did with Darkest Dungeon. I would like to point out that they could have just done what all the other companies done, which literally, I don't know how many I've covered now, where they just say, oh, no, we're done. That's it. Sorry. We're going to liquidate our assets and close the company. No more Mythic Games. You guys won't get your games now. There's a lot of companies that have done that. Mythic Games still has not. They are still trying to deliver the game. So as bad as the decisions might have been from the business, or maybe even continue to be, there is still that desire to deliver the games, and you do have to give at least a little props for that. There's a lot of negative, but again, I kind of started this with the whole wanting to make games versus running a business and different skill sets and stuff like that, and the fact that not everything is malicious. I do not think that this is a purposeful Ponzi scheme. If so, it's one of the worst ones I've ever seen. There are much easier ways to do this. Again, you just take the money and run. That's just what they would have done, but they haven't run yet. So obviously not. Or they failed at their Ponzi 101 course, one or the other. I don't know. Maybe this was a senior project and they just flunked out. But that's not how it works, right? You raise all of it, you keep it going, and then boop, you move town. Nowhere to be seen. No content information. You worked under an alias. You're gone. You're out of here. It's not the case for them. They're still here making videos, making updates, trying to deliver the game as best as their skill set and current situation allows. Whether that's good enough, we'll see. Jarek, I'm happy to help you with numbers, manufacturing, shipping if needed. Jarek, I would love to have a conversation with you. I've talked to many developers when it comes to the cost of manufacturing, especially kind of early on when a lot of this came up. Like I said, with the whole Batman 1 as an example, but a ton of others. I've talked to Shadowborn Games, I've talked to Monolith, I've talked to Dragori, I've talked to Creative Games, I've talked to so many, a ton of different companies. I've talked to Mythic Games about it even, and seen some of their internal papers, actually. So there's a lot that, I know at least from back then. I would love to hear how it is now, though, and I know Jarek is a fan of his fancy charts and numbers, and he's very data-driven. If you didn't know, by the way, Jarek runs Archon. That's Archon Studio right there. We should have a conversation. Let's see. Exactly. I only pledged $1 for Anastair. Lucky you, I did not. I'm back for more. Also, they had a ton of unfilled projects. Yeah, a lot of us did. That being said, Anastair was fun. It actually hurt me a little bit more because I've played the prototypes and enjoyed those. And it's really hard to say no to a game you enjoy. right? If you know it's a hit, if you know other people enjoy playing it, like your gaming group will actually enjoy it, it's almost like guaranteed back for me, because there are so many games I back that don't end up landing for the gaming group. So if I know that my family's going to enjoy it, my either my wife or my kids or anything like that, like I'm going to go all in. Like I'm going to invest, because at that point I want a game that gets played, not just sit there on the shelf. So definitely lucky you on that one. Someone over at BGG suggested that they go forward to Ubisoft about this. Again, you can, by all means, I guess, voice your displeasure. Just know that Ubisoft is a massive company. The person you're talking to will probably be able to tell their boss, and their boss will say, I don't care, and not tell it to their boss, who would then have to tell it to their boss, who would then have to tell it to their boss, and then up and up and up and up, till eventually somebody that I can actually make a decision says, yeah, I don't care, that's small change. Like why would they care what some little hokey board game is doing? Because we're pretty hokey compared to the video game likes of someone like Ubisoft. They're not too concerned about this, I imagine. Not at all. In fact, one of the biggest ways to deal with drama, especially one that you're not directly attached to, is just to peace out. Just don't even mention it. You know how many times I got in trouble for putting myself in there and be like, hey guys, I want to have a conversation with you, even though this doesn't affect me. And I'm like, I got hurt. It happens. The best way to avoid drama online is to keep quiet about it. And then it'll just go away, and the next fad will come over. People will be upset about something else, and they'll move on. And you won't even mention Ubisoft and board games together again. And if you do, you're such a small minority niche group that, again, they don't care. So, I mean, yeah, technically they should care. They're not going to, especially a big company like Ubisoft. And I don't mean that, like, big companies don't care. It's just they're so big. You only notice like the little things you can't notice, right? They're busy dealing with way bigger issues, with way bigger, like, headwinds and, in the video game space and, from everything from like Hollywood movies even and stuff, like they're not concerned about the little board game. Unfortunate, but, and again, you're complaining to people that have no say so in it really either. I mean, they're not the decision makers, and don't try and like vent to people that are just doing their job. And the person taking in whatever email you're writing is just trying to have a good Tuesday. Maybe they're going to go out on a date with their spouse later on, or spend some time with their kids, or play a video game, or maybe even a board game, and they're just trying to have a good Tuesday. And then your, Nastygram email comes in. I'm not saying you'd send a Nastygram. I just mean, like, just if you are communicating, be courteous to people, because the people you're talking to probably aren't the ones in trouble. I did see a comment on Kickstarter commenting about Leo saying that they wanted to like punch him in his face and do all that kind of stuff. I mean, that's a very immature way of reacting. I can understand being angry. I can understand thinking that, threats of physical violence on the internet aren't a big deal. And technically, yeah, except that there's a long history of people like killing themselves from being online bullied. Like tons of people are dealing with all sorts of stuff. And it just takes one more Nastygram to do that. And I understand that you might even think, and you're so detached from people that you think like, good, I want to punch him in the face anyway. But I'm not saying Leo will. I'm just saying like it can affect people, especially if you're in a crappy situation. If you've ever done anything wrong in your life and then you start getting like punished for it or whatever, it can put you in a really bad spot in your life, and you just struggle to even find joy in it anymore. And that's not a good place to be. So just again, I understand being upset, but just stay a little classy about it, I guess. I don't know. I don't support anything like that. I'm waiting for my core Solomon Kane box. Are you serious? Shoot. I pre-ordered it and it doesn't show up in my account. PayPal won't do anything. Yeah, PayPal doesn't care at all. I've emailed Mythic Games a couple times, no response. Good luck. Sorry to hear that, BB. I've contacted them about my fundraiser from last year and have had kind of similar reactions. So they're swamped. After hearing a guy saying that if everyone would pay the amount collected to be $750K, close to 50% of the, like I said, my take is that MG is exploring a new territory and hustling. Again, if so, they're doing it really, really poorly. You can do it a lot smoother. You just keep producing. Like, all they would have had to do is make another campaign after Anastyr, pretend like nothing bad happened, raise even more money, eke it out as much as possible, delay more and more, just like that Storm Thunder 1.5 year delay junk, right? Just keep it going. It has a 10-year development cycle, apparently afterwards. Do a Kingdom Death Monster scenario, right? Just keep raking in the money as long as possible, then peace out. They would have peaced out by now if they were doing any hustling. I don't think that's the case. I can understand the feeling And I do think that it's more than just production and shipping raw of that necessarily. But again, I don't have exact numbers to back that up. I haven't heard back from Mythic Games. Haven't talked to Jarek or anybody else when it comes to that. It's obvious that beforehand they were running on a cash flow, and I feel like that's still what they're doing, especially as a company that can now no longer intake really any money besides their small change, chump change really online store. So really it's just them trying to infuse money into their company so they can continue to operate. I was sorry for you Mythic Games backers. Oh, thank you. I'm glad that I always skeptical of them and never backed a single Mythic Games campaign. Yes and no. I mean, the ones they delivered post Joan of Arc, post Reichbusters, really. I think 1.5 Joan of Arc came out. Either way, the more recent ones since Solomon Kane have been really, really good. And Joan of Arc, it was like close to glory. Like if they had been able to actually make it more competently, like the gameplay itself, it was a really, really fun game. So they made some great games, and that's what makes it hurt more. If they made bad games, first of all, it wouldn't be affecting as many people, because not as many people would back their stuff. But also, it'd be like, yeah, okay, yeah. Well, I didn't want to get that bad game anyway. Six Siege, even the prototype, was a blast to play. Really, really fun. So, kind of makes it hurt more. I'm sorry. Oh, no, I already said that. I did the math through. Okay, yeah, about 759. Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. It's probably more than that if they actually got everything. Even if they got that 80%, it's guaranteed it's probably more than $1 million with late backers and stuff like that. It's bad when KOA has to make a short about the news. I didn't have to calm you guys down. I just want to let you guys know that I heard you. I didn't have enough time to do everything. I was working over the weekend. I do apologize for that. Work takes up a lot of my time, like my normal day-to-day work. But all of you guys come to me, and I do appreciate that. I really do. I'm glad I can be here to kind of have this kind of conversation with you guys. But I wanted to make sure you guys knew that I wasn't just ignoring you. I do hear you. I was busy right then. So I was like, I'll just do a short. Maybe I'll do that more in the future. Oh, by the way, if you're wondering like how well shorts do, this got about almost 5,000 views and 17 cents in funding. So yeah, YouTube ads, they pay just less than you would think necessarily. So yeah, if you appreciate this, Patreon link down below, or a super chat or something like that. Okay, here's my query. If everyone stops paying these ransoms, will Mythic go bankrupt? Yes. They haven't had money in since Darkest Dungeon, really. You can't just keep running a business with so many employees and, not go under. That's especially when it comes to delivering stuff. They'll just say, we don't have enough money to make anything. We'll just take our money and pay off any debts and then leave. Let's see. For any campaigns we have backed, yes, we as a community have a few choices. Not pay and never see the product. That is one choice. Most likely, yeah. Oh, yeah, no, you're not going to see it if you don't pay. Two, even if they do produce it and deliver it, it'll only be to those who pay. If you do not pay, you will not get your game. It's just as simple as that. Pay and have a very good chance that we will see their product. Still a chance we won't. No, I think it's a pretty good chance. They did good on their Darkest Dungeon. I imagine they did here, especially with like $750,000+ coming in. They should be able to do just fine and deliver it. 3, let everyone else pay and maybe not see the product shipped. Didn't know that's not going to happen. Ask for refund. You're not going to get it. 5, something happens outside of our control. All of this is outside of our control, besides whether we pay extra or not, which is kind of a bummer. At the end of the day, I don't like what we were being asked for. Money, it definitely sucks. Will Mythic Games survive? Not over time. Again, I don't know when the train stops, but I'm sure it does eventually. There's a slim chance, there's a non-zero chance that they are able to do this continually for all of their things, deliver all their stuff, and then somehow turn a 180 and offer something new and do well in it because people were impressed by the fact that they kept going and still succeed. Possible. But even if they do, it's kind of like BioWare now, if you know video games, where it's not the same company it was. The people behind it have left. The people that were doing it have left. It's made up. It may have the same name, but it's certainly... It may not have that magic anymore, if that makes sense. So I don't know. We'll see. It'll be kind of interesting. Curious to hear what you say about the last of Dragori games and Tenero's content. I have not read that. I apologize. I've been so busy with this. Give me time. I'll look into it. Please mention something about Lucky Duck announcing a new game for... Okay. Yeah, so this is the splitting plates. I love it. I'm glad you're paying attention. Thank you, Marshall. Exactly. Be on the lookout for future Mythic Games or companies. I don't necessarily know if that's Lucky Duck. I know Lucky Duck does a lot of retail stuff too, so I don't think the cash flow is necessarily going to stop for them. But that doesn't mean they aren't going over the capacity that they should. So there's probably always room for criticism, improvement, and anything, including business and how businesses run themselves and stuff. And so if they could certainly improve, I think, with how much they are producing as a company. That being said, just a general blanket statement, be on the lookout. Don't get yourself in a situation like I did, where you end up like 6 games into a company that hasn't delivered them, and then something like this happens and you're out hundreds of dollars. Like, don't do that. Constantly be on the lookout. If you see something you're worried about, like Lucky Duck, let me know. I'll try and look into it as well. Solomon Kane is such a good game. Again, it is. And this is what really, really sucks about it. Isofarian Guard did deliver, by the way. The game is massive. My goodness. I'm primarily upset because it's not just $129, but because shipping on top of that again too. I'm already out $454 USD for an all-in, including $65 in shipping already. Think about such folks who didn't back being able to get all the SKUs, including contributor awards, for 2 or 3 times less than what I'm paying. Makes I'm not sure exactly what they're talking about. Was people getting it less? I guess perhaps the shipping. I'm not sure if they're counting that as a discount or not. Probably not. It's getting these prices right are very complex anyway when it comes to where everybody is and getting the right number. It's honestly, I imagine a lot of it's probably wrong. I'm in for $660 for, by the way, most pledge managers don't end up adding it right either. It's just, it doesn't pass the sniff test, right? Like, your first knee-jerk reaction is, okay, I'm paying that much, and you pay that much. It's only when it's really high then people start looking at it and they're like, well, if I add this and do this, then suddenly it doesn't. Most campaigns are like that. Like, pledge managers are really hard. The backend systems are really good, and it's a super complex situation to like deliver like so many SKUs globally to a whole bunch of people. So they're almost all wrong. It's just whether or not it passes the sniff test or not. So I'll guarantee it's wrong at something like that. Let's see. Let's put everything aside for Mythic Games in this Kickstarter for a moment. A new Kickstarter, all in today, is ranging in the 600 CAD, which is Canadian dollars. And I'm using Come On White Death as benchmark because it just funded. Okay, yeah. So essentially what they're trying to say is like, hey, how much is this compared to like what an all-in nowadays would be? And again, a lot of it just kind of depends on where you live. And some places get better deals than others. Same way here. Again, if all you did was get the other thing, well, that's $129. So you paid that. It's not necessarily a terrible deal, but it is more than what you were promised. That's for sure. But for some people, it's a huge amount. I'm glad I canceled and got refunded on all the other projects I backed from them. Yeah, congrats on that. Honestly, wouldn't have had too much of a problem with them asking for a couple extra bucks, but asking for 40 to 130, that's absolutely mental. Yeah. Again, it's one of those things where I still feel like they have too many employees. I don't understand it. I don't know why they have so many people. It's crazy. Like I would be a company that doesn't have an office. I'd just be working from home on everything and talking to people over Discord because I couldn't afford like Zoom. Like I don't know. The same people that got the business to this point are running the business. So I don't know what to tell you. And by the way, it's not just Leo. Like if nothing else, I believe he has a partner that's kind of working in there too. He's definitely the face of the company. But I don't know their whole management structure or how that even works or anything like that. I just know that like they are definitely not running the cheapest company you could possibly run right now. And so yeah, I bet it is kind of expensive. I'm just curious if anyone who has not paid the extra fees at Dark Souls ever got the game. No, I guarantee that's not the case. Well, I'm sure there's people that bought it secondhand. Will the company go under if all backers get their refunds? Again, the refunds are only for the contributions. But will they go under if they get to that point? It's possible. I think they would look at other ways to fund. And this is actually kind of a good point here. They're choosing the contribution thing, but there are other ways to do it. Not necessarily to the degree they need it in. So you can actually still do like, and I think Awakened Realms did this throughout COVID very well, where they kept adding stuff to the pledge manager. They're like, now you can buy this resin model, and it's like $80 million. And everyone's like, oh my gosh, the resin model looks great. I want a big King Arthur. And then they go back and whatever, and that's another influx of money, and that they keep doing even after the Kickstarter and stuff like that. They could be like, hey, they could have done this whole thing where they're like, we're still working on, Sixth Siege, and we got these 2 new maps. Instead of giving them away for free, they're like, oh, it's now a new add-on, do that, and kind of try and get money that way. The problem is they're in such a big hole, and they still run their company in such an expensive way to where they need something like $750,000 plus or something like that. So it's kind of the only viable way to get that big of an influx, and it's kind of killing your, money tomorrow for today in a way. Hell will happen. Yes, no, I don't know. I think it's actually it's definitely one of their cheaper deliveries total. It's not as big of a game as others that they've offered. However, it was also cheaper, so it didn't make as much, I think, as they would have necessarily profit-wise. So I'm not sure where they would be with that. I think Monster Apocalypse is probably one of their worst when it comes to how much they sold it for versus how much you get. It was actually a very good deal. And it's also IP-based. So I don't know if those negate each other out or not, if they have any business needs to deliver stuff. I'm not sure. Good job. You didn't push a video yet. The situation got worse. Yeah, it's building on itself. It's just feeding itself now. It's snowballing out of control. Mythic Games is going the way of Ninja Division. Yeah, kinda. It is a breach of contract to ask for more money for pledges. There's no contract. Yeah, no, it's kind of a non-starter there, sadly. Thing is, Six Siege is, as well as Hell, were quite underpriced for what you were supposed to get. Oh, very true. They were great deals. Too good to be true, you could almost say. They were fantastic deals for what you were getting. Definitely beat the snot out of stuff like Come On and stuff like that. But, this kind of led to me thinking, like, I'm actually okay paying a little premium. I said this with Elden Ring. I think Elden Ring was a misstep in how to design a campaign to actually make the backers happy. But price-wise, I wasn't actually too upset about it for what you were getting. I mean, it sucks. But at the same time, I know I'm going to get it because they definitely made enough profit, right? It's kind of like that. Do I want to pay extra premium for just poker chips that are weighted, whatever? It's so cheap. It's like, well, no, but Chip Theory Games is going to deliver the game. So I say that because this Safari Guard just delivered, I think, chips as well. I think they had that, and it was a lot cheaper. Imagine that. Other companies can offer different prices. But, again, you're paying premium, but you get a premium experience, right? Let's see. Oh, that was Dennis. Hi, Dennis. Sort of feels like there's no good answer. You're correct. I had to tell my kids this too, right? It's like there are situations where there just are no winners. It's a lose-lose for everybody involved except Kickstarter. Kickstarter couldn't care less. But Mythic Games loses and we lose. It's kind of annoying, really. Like at this point, I got the gameplay all in. The price is now more towards a normal Kickstarter's all in. It's dumb. Yes, it's very dumb, especially because I doubt you were necessarily banking on needing the money all this time later. It's why I hate backer kit charging late. If I don't pay the contribution, is there a chance to get the game later? Secondhand, you can always look there, but it'll cost you more than the contribution. Okay, first, people got their message and shall pay $245 extra. That's insane, and definitely robbery. I would have to look up the definition of robbery, but it's certainly a raw deal. Off topic, but I would like to hear your opinion about Daenerys' latest update. Ooh, man. 2 of them. I'll be sure to comment on that. Imagine they're still struggling with all the SKUs and logistics around everything. Does this mean no Anastair? Probably. I don't know, though. I guess we'll see. I don't know what their order is. Whatever's last might not get there. We'll see. Okay, yeah, the same thing. Oh, and this. What is the update that he's talking about? Yeah, I suck at this. I apologize. Hopefully I explained the situation good to you guys this time. Guys, that's it. That's a lot of conversation. Feel free to continue in the comments below. I will be looking over it. We'll be talking through this. I'll be sure to take what I learned from here when I talk about future games to you guys to try and help inform you guys if I see something that I think is a little worrisome as well. I'll look into that Daenerys thing for you guys. If there's anything else, again, feel free to let me know. It's not all doom and gloom out there. There's a lot of good companies doing great things. Don't just focus on the negative. And with that, thank you guys so much for watching. I do appreciate it. I love doing this for you guys. And I'll talk to you guys again very soon with another normal news video covering a whole bunch of campaigns. So stay tuned for that. Oh, and a review. I'll be working on that here soon too. So anyway, take care. Bye, guys.